If you're here because the title said you want to know why people ghost you, welcome. So let's talk about this, right? You also have to realize that context matters the most. So one answer is not going to be the absolute answer for every situation, every single scenario out in the world, okay? You also have to understand there are different reasons why people do different things. You also have to understand you might have contributed to that, right? So you have to really always look at different angles. And you might still be confused, right? Because ghosting is always hurtful regardless of what the reason is, right? Because it's, and that's why I always say, it doesn't matter what questions you're still asking. It doesn't matter what kind of closure or clarity you're asking for, because the effects are going to be the same. People ask questions all the time because they think that knowing more is going to ease the pain, but that's not the case a lot of times, which is I always say closure is an illusion, because knowing why something happened doesn't eliminate the pain that you have to suffer, right? You knowing why you have to suffer trauma isn't really going to make you be able to justify that, right? Although it could empower you in a lot of ways. For example, if you're asking like why this person ghosted you, you could ask, and maybe you've gone to psychics and they told you, well, it was too much. They couldn't handle the love. They couldn't handle the feelings that they had for you. That could really boost your ego, right? And it could help you. But does that really help you though? Because you still don't have an actual answer, right? So, you know, it's interesting because I am in the position where I provide divination. I do readings for people and I help people understand different aspects of their relationship, and I'm in the position to give people that closure, or at least hopefully provide like insights and guidance on the situation that they don't really understand. But always remember that you can always understand situations from your own perception. So meaning that just because you hear about another person's side, it's not always going to make sense to you. Again, people do things for their own will, out of their own will. People do what they do because that's who they are. And if it doesn't make sense to you, you're not really going to get the closure that you think you're going to get, because it doesn't make sense to you. So it doesn't register. Like, it makes no sense. So for example, like, how does it make sense for someone to just like ghost you because they have had too much feelings for you, right? Not saying that was the case for you. And I'm also not saying that can't happen. I'm just giving you an example, something to think about. Because I always like to kind of give like some message that's bigger than the actual question that you're asking, because that's how life works. Life is usually never black and white. And if you are usually a black and white thinker, honestly, I don't know what to say to you, because life is not black and white. But if you choose to live life black and white, then that's your right. But just know that that might not be the truth, okay? But if that's a perception that you're committed to, then that's a perception you're committed to. So anyways, let's get to the point here. Why this person might have ghosted you. So there's different reasons why people do things. Now, I'm not gonna give you all the list of reasons, okay? And if you want to know why your specific person of interest ghosted you, or cut off communication, or is doing something that you don't understand, I would love to help you in a private session, actually, because that is what I do, right? But this is a general video for like a general thing. Ultimately, it has to do with the fact that they didn't have the capacity to communicate. But the incapacity isn't always because of they didn't want to. It's that they were maybe still processing. They didn't know how to communicate, right? What do we do when we want answers? We like to assume the most. We kind of jump to conclusions. We might sometimes nag the other person. We might rush the other person to give us the answers that we were looking for. But what if the other person is just taking their time, or they genuinely don't have an answer because they themselves haven't figured it out? They don't know what to conclude, how to conclude. They don't know how to organize their thoughts and feelings. I know it's really easy to demonize someone for not giving us what we want or what we think that we deserve. For example, in this context, an answer, clarification, communication. But what if it's a case where they genuinely didn't have a conclusion that they came to, and they were just taking their time, or they didn't have the capacity to prioritize that to even formulate an appropriate answer? It's not really always like malicious intentions, guys. people don't always do it out of malice, but it's sometimes out of, you know, ignorance or incapacity, but also them taking their own time. But other times it is for their selfish reasons, right? And selfish reasons meaning they knew what their reasoning was, but they didn't want to look like a bad guy. They couldn't be honest about it, or they didn't want to be honest with you because they didn't want to hurt your feelings, because they didn't want to seem like the bad person, or they didn't want you to be mad at them. So they just kind of took the easy way out and just dipped, right? There's that, which is inherently selfishness. It is inherently selfishness because they cared more about their reputation, or, you know, their inability to have this conflict with you because they knew that you were going to refute that and that they're going to have to explain themselves. Maybe they didn't want to have that, right? So like I said in the very beginning, this has to do with the incapacity of somebody, but the incapacity has subcategories, right? So instead of making this as a reason to blame the other person and just like get angry, try to now make this about your individual circumstances and really try to understand their character. And sometimes it takes time for us to really see someone's character. For example, like when we're really like having strong emotions, like if we're really angry at this person, it might be easier to make this person a bad person, like a piece of crap. Oh, like you're garbage, after all this time you couldn't communicate this with me. Valid, right? Those are your valid perceptions, those are feelings, so completely valid how you feel. But what could have really happened here within that realm of incapacity? I already gave you examples, right? And you could say it's selfish. It's up to you ultimately how you want to define this, okay? Define this ghosting, define their action. That's up to you. This video is not to convince you out of your own way of seeing things. But because you are probably wondering like why this person ghosted you, I'm just letting you know, just giving you a perspective here. Yes, it is the person's incapacity, but there are subcategories under it. It's not always the same reason. It's not because they don't care about you. Because sometimes people can care, but their actions might tell they're otherwise. The thing is, like, this is where people differ in the way they approach life, because you think that caring about you means that they have to communicate every single thing that they think and decide, because you believe that that's what they need to do because they care and respect. But what if in their belief, their way of caring for you is they don't want to hurt your feelings. They also don't want to jump to a conclusion when they're not even sure how they feel. So they're taking their time out of care for you because they don't want to hurt you out of something that they say out of a hasty moment. You see? Different perspectives. And if you really know this person's character, you have to think about that aspect, right? I know you're swimming in your own feelings, which is why you're trying to get answers about how they feel and why they ghosted you and blah, blah, blah. You might even be internalizing this and like blaming yourself for why. And that's good. It's in a productive place to be questioning yourself, but also you make sure you kind of keep yourself the limit. Don't go in too much that you really make this about your fault or their fault. Again, circumstantial here, because you might be because whoever you're watching this, you might be dealing with a situation where this person really was a complete trash and they really didn't give a crap about you, and they now just ghosted you and they don't give a single damn. That can happen as well. Okay, I'm just giving you a perspective here that, you know, but for those people who know this person's not like that, but they ghosted you out of nowhere, or maybe this relationship wasn't really meaningful and suddenly the communication just dropped, right? Obviously there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. What helps sometimes is, you know, detaching ourselves from our own narrative and putting ourselves in their shoes. And of course, unless we are them, it's going to be impossible to really see it from their side. But at least before you demonize the other person, especially someone that you had a really solid relationship with or connection with, try to extend yourself this explanation that this probably had to do with the fact that there was not enough communication, that right now there is not enough clarity in the situation, so it just looks like they ghosted. What if maybe they were just taking their time, right? again, different context. What if it was a situation that needed further communication, but maybe they just needed more time to ponder, right? Again, I don't know what you're dealing with here, which is why I said, if you are looking for the clarification, I would love to help you in a private session, because that's what I do. I look at situations from different angles. The thing about me is that I don't look at it from your side only, because our feelings are not facts. And just because you perceive a situation in a certain way, it doesn't make that perception accurate, you know? But it doesn't make it invalid, because that's how you're experiencing your reality. But I like to look at from all angles, and I look at the other person's side and see what's going on there, right? But ultimately, I think that ghosting is a lot more common than ideal. I have also ghosted, and every time that I ghosted wasn't the same reason. It's each time it's a different reason. I'm also the type of person who has reasons behind my actions. I'm aware of what I do. It doesn't mean that I'm always consciously choosing, because I'm always also aware that inaction also is action. Not taking action is still a choice. It might not be an active choice, but it's still a choice that I'm making, because I'm choosing to not take action, so I'm choosing to not take action alternatively, right? And sometimes it wasn't because I wanted to do that, it's just what I needed to do for myself, but it wasn't really like ghosting out of like malicious intent or like carelessness in one context. But there are other contexts where I just completely ghosted because I just didn't want to give it, like I didn't give a damn, I didn't want to continue. There was too much, you know, bullshit. So obviously, if we're talking about, you know, the context of ghosting in a situation where there was a solid relationship connection, some, you know, genuine, sincere, it's never really because I just didn't want to give a shit. That's not it, right? And I'm saying this because I want to give you a perspective, right? Also think about the times that you ghosted. Why did you ghost? Is life always black and white? Do you always ghost people because you just didn't want to give a crap? That's not like that. Humans do things for all kinds of reasons, and most of the time, yes, it's out of self-defense. It's out of, like, you know, us needing to protect ourselves, or needing more time, needing more space, or whatever it is. We all always have justified reasons for ourselves. It doesn't always create the best outcome for every single person involved. But I'm just giving you a perspective here. If you're wondering like why they ghosted you, first, you know, yes, first understand this has to do with the incapacity of that person, but not assuming the worst about the incapacity. I explained there's different subcategories, right? And sub reasons. And secondly, look at your own actions. What could you have possibly, how could you have possibly contributed to this person ghosting? So you being accountable for your own action as well. And thirdly, knowing that this doesn't have to be the bastardization or demonization of someone in particular. Yes, it is a sour outcome, but at this point, you don't really have all the answers, right? But also, still staying on number 3, if you genuinely know that you don't know, you did everything possible, but then this person still did that, ghosted you with no communication, then you can conclude, you can deduce to that this person just really being a piece of shit. This is why I say context matters, because ghosting happens in different contexts. And you don't have to wait for this person to, you don't have to understand the why to conclude this person as a piece of shit. Because if you have already looked at yourself, if you did nothing wrong, if there was nothing wrong at all, and this person still did that, then they never gave a crap in the first place. So it's really being able to at least be honest, okay? And it's really important, guys, that just because you were good to somebody doesn't mean that they're not gonna ghost you, okay? That this is what happens in like a a lot of like situationships, you wonder why they ghost you. It's because they probably never gave a crap. Okay, you thought that there was something, you thought that they cared about you, but then we also touched on the fact that somebody could care, but they don't want to hurt your feelings, so this is their way of caring, and they ghost because they didn't want to be honest. You see, it's never black and white. You see, I hope this video is like not confusing you more, but at least giving you a perspective here, so you don't like get in your own thoughts and like make the worst of your situation. So I'm just giving you a perspective. But people ghosting, sometimes it has to do with, but also realistically speaking, sometimes people ghost and it's a reaction to your action. Okay, it's really important, guys, to always like at least have the decency to like question ourselves too, because we always point fingers at other people. Like sometimes I've seen videos on TikTok where this girl was asking like their friend of 10 years ghosted her, and her therapist was saying, well, I don't remember what the video said, but it's easier to want to justify your own actions, but it's always good to consider the possibility that someone not talking to you because you contributed to that reasoning, that you probably hurt them, that you were maybe a shitty friend, shitty partner. I'm not saying that's the case for everyone, but that's a possibility also. Look in the mirror first, and then we can think about other things. But yeah, so hope this perspective helped you. Leave a comment down below if this video was helpful or not, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.